Some people would say that foster children's lives are valuable because we are human beings. We have lots of people to help us with our lives, but it takes a lot to try to replace our families. Not many people know because one foster child exists, at least 45 people get paid for trying to help us. Problem is, these 45 people can't always agree on what is best for us children, but we are the ones who end up getting hurt. These people are called the protectors.
This is an enormous task that the community is taking on. Children are unprotected, they're weak, they're small, and they are injured, they are neglected, they are sexually abused, they are emotionally abused. It's not as bad now as it was 100 years ago or 500 years ago. The history of childhood is frightening. Children were slaves. They were treated like animals in different times and different places. We seem to be improving our care and our attitude towards children over the decades and certainly over the centuries. But there are always going to be some cases in which the state, the community, must intervene on behalf of children. When we do, we take on the almost impossible task of raising a child who has been raised by parents who there are biological and sociological, psychological connections between that child and that family. The state does a poor job as parent. And so we are trying as best we can to use services to support families so they can take back the child and be good parents. That's the first thing we're trying to do. And if we're not successful with that, we're going to put them in permanent homes. And in the meantime, between the time we remove a child and the child either goes home or to a permanent home, we're in charge. And we want that period of time to be as short as possible.
The foster care system as a whole is essentially sick. It's almost terminal in its illness, and it's plagued with so many problems that it's hard to start and figure out exactly where you should focus. There aren't enough foster parents. The foster parents that are out there aren't getting the support they need from the systems. Many of the foster parents don't know that much about high-risk kids. They may be very well intended, but they've never been trained or given any tools to help understand and work with kids that have these unique problems. These foster parents inherit kids with a host of problems and a whole history of previous placements, and they're not given any information.
That's very much discouraged, and we had social workers who were adamant that it didn't matter that you might have spent 5 or 7 or 8 years in a foster home. If you left that foster home, that was it. There was to be no further contact. And again, I think it's because they felt there'd somehow be some interference.
There is no continuity of information about the strengths and vulnerabilities of a child from placement to placement. It usually is this abrupt transition, and there's turnover in caseworkers, there's turnover in clinical services, there's new schools. It's a whole new world for this child.
It's like every child needs a life book, and they need to put it together. Too many of our kids don't have pictures, they don't have anything that actually validates their childhood, that they can carry on with them.
So the foster parents who inherit these kids are at a disadvantage. And the kids, of course, because of that, are at a greater disadvantage, because here's young kids being asked to completely change their world after 3 months in one placement or 6 months in another placement. And some of these kids have really significant behavioral problems, and when they act out, they immediately get extruded. You know, the foster parent says, I can't handle this child. They call up the caseworker moves the child. The experience from the perspective of the child is, it just unimaginably heartbreaking. I think very, very few people can truly connect with what that feels like. And it's got to be confusing, it's got to be fear-inducing, it's got to be discouraging and demoralizing, and it's got to create for that child a sense that the world is unpredictable and heartless and chaotic, and that people are invariably going to let you down, and that people who say one thing today are going to say another thing tomorrow, and I've heard that before, and why should I invest in you? Because I know you want me to call you mom now, in 3 months you'll be telling me to get the hell out of here. These kids develop this internal catalog of experience that makes them have a very, very difficult time with a new start. And that's what we ask them to do all the time. Start over, start over, start over, start over. And it's a tremendously unfair thing to do. It leads to terrible, terrible development for these kids. They're at disadvantages in emotional, social, cognitive, and physical development. And it is wrong to do.
My name is Walter Burgess. I'm 21. I'm a former foster youth. I'm now emancipated. I've been through a lot of group homes through my life, but managed to succeed and survive them and be successful in life.
I'm James Votts. I'm 18 years old. I'm currently in foster care. I've been in 2 group homes and 3 family care homes.
If group homes were run the way they're supposed to be run, a lot of kids would not be AWOLing. A lot of kids would not be trying to commit suicide. A lot of kids would not be trying to escape or tell their social workers that they don't like where they live. They wouldn't be moving 25, 30 different group homes like I did.
Our motto is a permanent home for every child. And we believe now in permanency as soon as possible. We start looking very early on so that they won't get into foster care drift, because we've heard horrible stories about children that have been in 22 foster homes. We hope that never, never happens again.
When I got put in the group homes, and I don't know if we're allowed to do this, but it was a hellhole, in my opinion. And if that's wrong for saying that, my bad. But I have a problem with staff not taking the chance to look over kids' profiles and make sure they know if they disrespect a kid or they make a kid feel uncomfortable, you're gonna have a situation that they might not be able to handle. I moved so much because I was in a foster home from 3 weeks old all the way till I was 6.5. That was like family to me. It was too long. And as soon as I left the foster home that I was in, which they're actually my foster parents now, still. They're still in my life. But when I was living with them, it was too much of being like a family. When I left, I acted out in a certain way because no other group home satisfied me like that home did.
Grown too attached, that's outrageous. That's the problem that the law was passed to address. The idea that you like your foster family too much, therefore you've got to move, that was seen as something called foster care drift. And the law in 1980 was written to stop that. And the agency very likely did that. Doesn't sound to me like there was judicial oversight, and it's outrageous. It makes my blood boil.
They just come, grab you, get your stuff, and leave. The sad part about that is you don't even get a chance to say goodbye. Right now I feel bad because I feel like I'm about to cry, because that was my baddest thing in life, was not being able to say goodbye to the people who actually took care of me longer than the group homes did.
Well, if you've been abandoned, you're just abandoned again and again and again. You've heard of attachment disorders? I wonder why it would be attachment disorders. they can't afford to attach because everybody's coming along behind them cutting the attachments. That's really, there's some of this stuff I have no way to verbalize the idiocy. I mean, lunacy. And sometimes I wonder if it's worse. Maybe it's just plain old mean or lazy. I don't know. Nobody else in this world is asked to do that except foster kids.
They try to stick us on medication, and because sometimes when we act up, and I'll honestly say this, and this is on camera, I never took the pills. People thought I did, but I didn't. I was very smart. My dad taught me very well. My dad is an RN, and he told me all through my life, he said, don't take the pills, because they will screw you up at the end. And I never took the pills. Only time I automatically had to take the pills was when I was in Helicon Youth Center here in Riverside, California. I had to, because they checked you and made you take them. That was the only time I took the medication. But the 11 and a half years that they had me on medication, only 11 months of that time I took medication. Because I was smarter than they were. They thought I acted out because I had a problem. No, I acted out because I didn't have a family.
Well, I got to tell you that he's not all by himself in this world. We have lots of kids who move multiple times. Not in this county, I'm glad to say. We really addressed that issue very strongly. But that has not ended foster care drift. And it is an institutional form of child abuse. Okay? It is actually the system abusing the child. And we know that. We know that multiple homes traumatizes children. It's a form of abuse. And the law says we shouldn't do it. And yet somehow we do it. And it's disgraceful.
So we're talking about California's children. And what I'm saying, these children belong to the state of California. And the state should be very, very responsible for what goes on in foster care, and foster homes, and in group homes, and in institutions and everything, where they have taken the child away from the parent. They're very responsible, and think they should be very sensitive to what's going on.
They have a thing on the wall that puts your rights up there, but sometimes they violate every single right on there, and then they go. You tell them that, oh, I'm gonna write a grievance on you, and I'm gonna tell your supervisor, and they'll lie up and down. And they say, oh, it's my word against yours. You're just a kid. What do you know?
A lot of the group homes were mad or upset or thinking that what they were doing, the stuff they were doing that we saw, they didn't want us going to tell our foster parents, because they figured our foster parents would go to the system and shut that group home down for what they were doing. And honestly, I did that. I told my foster parents everything that was happening all through the group homes. I literally almost got 2 group homes shut down for the stuff they pulled. Not on me, but on other kids. And I did that because I was sick and tired of seeing group homes take advantage of little kids.
I know that there's a lot of frustration like with the parents and with the kids, but I don't think that the parents should take it that far to physically abusing them or mentally abusing them. The staff wait until no one's looking, or they try to get on your good side, and then they'll wait until everybody's away, and then they'll come at you, and they'll provoke you to do things that you know that are wrong. But that's I don't really know what to say on that, but like sometimes the staff will come to you and they'll tell you this kid said this or this kid said that, and they'll try to get you to go and retaliate for them, or they'll wait till everybody's like away, and then they'll take the kid outside. And I've seen this guy was like 200 pounds, and he was on a 9-year-old that only weighed about 65 pounds, and he was like restraining the kid like he was an adult.
It was right after I went into the group home. I'd been in the group home for about 3 months. Then they sent me to a foster home Then they took, after they took me out of the foster home, they sent me in the group home for about a month till they had an opening at the village, and then they took me back to the village, and I was there until I was about 11 years old. It was actually 2 weeks before my 12th birthday that they actually moved me. Even though they tried to accept me for who I was, and as a foster kid, they chose their kids' needs over mine. I know I wasn't exactly the nicest kid, but they had me up on some drug I didn't even know the name of. I didn't know what it did. It just made me sleepy. Because in order to survive, you have to know who you are and where you want to go, one way or another. Because you could be, have a car, have an apartment, have a job, but when you're out there, nobody's going to hold your hand. So you got to do what you got to do to survive. It's a knack that all foster kids have. One way or another, we survive. It might not always be a healthy way to survive, but we survive.
I've met with the California Youth Connection kids on a number of occasions in panels and in larger groups. And I think that is a legitimate complaint. If we can't provide them a permanent home, then they can't really connect with very much. They can connect with friends and people who are passing through their lives. But to ground them, to make them feel as though they belong, they need something permanent. And for us not to be able to find that would leave an impression upon me that nobody really cared to meet my fundamental need of a permanent home. And so, sure, you're faceless, or you're a number, you're a case. You're just another kid, just like the last one, just like your talk about the group home. Kid shows up at the group home, it's number 400. But that's it. And so you're going to hear that answer a lot for kids who age out of the foster care system, that they feel faceless, unsupported, alone, isolated. All those words apply. And that's an enormous task, as I said earlier, for us to connect them with people. But we'll keep plugging away at that, and I think the best strategy is to find them some family.
There was 7 of us. My name's Melissa. I'm 19. I'm the second eldest. And the girls were separated to a foster home. It was my sister Misty and my sister Marla. And at the time, we thought the bad people were the police officers who took us from our home, and the foster parents who took care of our physical needs but treated us like a job, like we weren't real individuals. And our biggest goal was just to get back together as one family.
It was only about a month, but we were moved quite some time. And as a small child, to be taken away from your parents, which you think, of course, are there to protect you, and not understanding the reasoning, and having a police officer, which it can be quite fearful, come and say, okay, come with me, and then be put with random people with all sorts of backgrounds, and then say, okay, well, and they expect you now to call them mother. I remember we were at a what they were going to consider a permanent foster place for us, and it was an elderly lady who said that pretty much degraded my biological mother and said, that is not your mother, I am your mother, and I expect you to call me mother. That's what I can remember. But before we were actually moved to there, we were at a temporary foster home in which I decided to run away, because that wasn't my place that I belonged. And so as a small child, I remember grabbing just some twine or some string to protect myself as I was to run away. And my main goal was to find Via Vista, a street where my younger brother was located, because at the original foster home, or the first foster house that we were at, it was Robin, myself, and my very young brother, who was around the age of 2 months, and he would cry himself to sleep every night, in which we would then cry ourselves to sleep because we couldn't do anything, and we were expected as young children to make sure that he was quiet. And so I went off looking for my my little brother, and what I found, of course, was I remember just walking down the street looking at the signs and crying.
I think at the beginning of my career, I would have thought the best thing to do was take them out of that situation, get them into a better situation, turn their life around in the right direction. I'm not so certain of that anymore at all. The more I hear from people who grew up in this system, who have experience from the other side, the more I tend to believe that no, we're not really doing them any favors. I think we need to do everything possible to keep them with their caretakers, or at least family, at all cost.
We were then brought to a temporary place, and where we were humiliated. This was just myself, my brother, and my younger brother, and our other brother was placed individually, and our sisters all together. We were placed there, we were humiliated every single day. And if the caregiver wanted to speak with us during the evening hours, she would pick up the phone in her room, call the house, and we would pick up the phone, and that's the only way we'd actually be able to have contact with her. Every night we cried ourselves to sleep. After a week or two, we were finally brought some clothes, change of clothes, so that we could change it into clean clothes. And then a couple days after that, we were moved to a more permanent place. At first, the caregiver there seemed extremely nice. We found that to be just a show. This was the one that Ryan said she wanted us to start calling her mother. After a while, we started seeing the true colors of her, and it got to the point where she would not change the soiled clothes of our younger brother. And being so young, I was only 10, I didn't even know how to wash clothes or, cook meals and take care of my younger brothers. We finally did, at the permanent house, we did finally meet up with our brother. I think he had been there a couple days before us. After that, Ryan took his second attempt to run away from the home, of which he succeeded, because the next day we hadn't seen him. That's when I took the initiative and saw the gate open, looked at it, stared at it for a while, thought it over, and I said, if Ryan can make a stand, I know I can make a stand. If we all make a stand, maybe we can get back to our mother.
We really did a great disservice to children in the years, thinking that we should take them away from their family and that they would never know their family or their brothers and sisters. We were separating siblings, and we shouldn't do that in any way, if there's any way to keep them together or in contact with each other. So we've come a long ways, and looking at the child and what they really need, and our motto is what's best for the child. That's what it's supposed to be.
I mean, we were really young. Now that I look back, I felt like we had to do something, because like our goal when we were first taken away, like my first thought was, I want to get back to my brothers and sisters. I want to unify our family, because that's what we were. We were a family. No matter what problems we had, that's what we were. And when we got together, I mean, of course, we all had quarrels and we all had problems, but when it came down to it, we kind of protected each other.
Not our whole lives have been depressing. Most of it, the majority of it. But there were individuals that we knew from a young age. We had certain times in our life, our mother would get on track for a few months and work. And we had met some people. We had a babysitter at one time, and what had happened later on in life is our babysitter as a young kid ended up to be our permanent mother now. Little by little, we all moved in with each other, and that's where we are now. Our case was pretty much reopened then, because they were going through the process of becoming foster parents, and they had 4 children of their own already. So through their efforts and the efforts of social workers, they made an exception and let us all stay there. So there's 13 of us now. They had 4 biological kids. They took in 7 of us, and they took in 2 more children who are in similar circumstances as us.
They gave us another chance.
They gave us stability, and they gave us direction, and they're amazing people. They both have to work full time, of course. It's nonstop, but we owe them everything.
My name is Lurleen Eve Brackett. I'm 18 years old. I've been in the system for about 17 and a half years, approximately, I think. And the reason why I was put in the system is because my stepfather used to beat on me and my sisters. And when they took me and my sisters away from my mom, the judge that was at the court, he gave my mom a choice between my stepdad and me and my sisters for my mom, and my mom chose my stepdad. And then we got placed into this big building. I think it was like a county building for foster children. And then like 2 days after being there, my grandma came and got us. And then since then, we've been in a relative placement.
You can remember that these CYC kids have had rough lives, but when they have children, they are the most vulnerable for ending right back up in this courtroom with their children. And so they have therapeutic needs also, and we try to address that and get them the help they needed, because often they're emotionally frozen at 4, 6, or 8 when traumatic things happen to them, and they need to talk about those things with a professional. So there's therapy to go all the way around here.
There was a foster parent who had been a foster parent for 16 years. She took only really tough kids. She didn't take very many, but she took really tough kids. She, at this time, had a daughter that she had had for 7 years. There was an allegation that came up for physical abuse. So they sent out an emergency response worker and put her on hold, which is another whole other thing. But to put her on hold, the emergency response worker did her investigation. It was, in my estimation, not a good, thorough investigation. But in her report, she cited 2 facts that I thought, and I think anybody would, was very damning to this lady. It said she had been on hold, on placement hold, for 4 years, from 1997 to 2001. And she'd been on hold because of physical abuse allegations. And it just happened to be a lady who was in my region, and I went, that doesn't sound right. So I went into our computer system and looked it up and couldn't find it. Couldn't find the allegation, nor that she'd been on hold. So I went to the social worker and I said, well, where'd you get this? And she said, oh, CCL told me, which is Community Care Licensing, which is the licensing facility, which cannot put them on hold because only the placement facility. So I knew that something was awry then. So I started digging. I talked to the social worker, I talked to anybody who'd had anything to do with this lady for the whole 16 years. I went back and looked. Those 2 statements, which in my estimation were very damning, both were 100% completely false.
I acquired my foster daughter when she was 4 years old, and she came to live with us without any background about her. We realized shortly after she came to us that she was a very troubled young lady, but she lived with us for 7 years. We were dealing with psychiatric hospitals and psychiatrists and therapists at that point when she first came with us, and she had been to the Barbara Sinatra Center. There was just a number of things that, a number of emotional and psychological problems that she had. She was a very, very difficult child at times to raise. But she lived with me for 7 years. In September 11th, 2000, I was returning to her school to pick her up, and they informed me that there was a social worker and an emergency response worker at the school, and she had had some bruises on her, which were not unusual, and they informed me that they were going to take her away from me, even though she said she didn't know where the bruises had come from, and I said I didn't know either. So they removed her, literally was kicking and screaming. I mean, she was crying and clinging to me, and they removed her from my care at that point.
She should have left under controlled conditions. I think she should have left with, with the parent, the foster parent, but the mom being able to go with her, and she was willing to do that.
Her former social worker knew about them. My mistake was I did not document everything. She was such an out-of-control child, and this is not really a great excuse, but I would have been literally documenting all day long because it was just too hard to keep up with everything. Plus, I didn't know she had the bruises. She had a lot of bruises. They took pictures, and she had them in her groin area, between her legs. She had them on her back. I don't see that part of her body. She's 11 years old. I'm not supposed to go into the bathroom with her.
We have here a report that is inaccurate. They say, oh, well, we just won't use that. It's already there. It's like, when somebody tells you something, they say, oh, just ignore what I just said. Nobody can, never will. So here's 2 damning pieces of evidence, and they built their case on that. So I came up and said, this is not okay. I was told by my boss, who also was supervisor of the whole committee, look, the decision's been made. It was made by a professional. Who do you think you are to do it? I said, it's a lie. That's not the important part. The important part, the decision's been made. The kid's gone. We can't do anything about it. What do you mean we can't do anything about it? We're going to do something about it. That was a year and a half ago. There's been a lot of hassle in between. I've got written up for not backing off. Finally, the administration has said, you're right. It was incorrect. But we'll fix it. We'll put a little addendum there saying that part was incorrect. And I said, but just like a house, if you take the foundation away from the house is going to fall down. I believe if you take this foundational charge away from this, the whole thing will come down. Well, we can't do that. You're the county. You can do whatever you want to. You have been doing up till now.
In September of 2001, she had run away from her home up north, where they had moved her to. One of the reasons was to get her away from me. And she ran away, and she called me from a payphone. I could hear the traffic behind her. She told me the name of the town, and I talked her into going back to her group home. And on her way back to the group home, she was picked up by somebody, and she was consequently raped. I did not know that at that night. She called again about a week later and let me know that she had been raped. I called the sheriff's department, and that's how it was verified to me. And then I asked the sheriff to go pick her up. And I asked her to stay. I made several phone calls, asked her to stay right where she was so the sheriff could pick her up because I didn't want anything to happen to her.
Kids who move around from foster home to foster home often look upon the first or second foster home where they made a connection as their home. And they will go through all kinds of Dickinsonian experiences, weaving here and there, and they will keep that goal alive. I've got to get back to my mom. If this is a foster mom, but that's my mom. And it's like imprinting. It's very important for the system, for all of us, to acknowledge this phenomenon and to take advantage of it. If I find somebody that the kid likes, who likes the kid, that is the solution. And what I want to do is make that work, make it permanent, support it, and then say goodbye to it. Let them live their lives.
The child is still out of the home. The county does not allow any connection between that mother. They say, oh, she's only a foster mom. She was this girl's mother for 7 years.
I feel very strongly that they were the ones that are responsible for the things that have happened to her. Just the fact that they refused to listen to me. I lived with her for 7 years. I know her better than anybody. And they refused to listen to me. They never contacted me again after they removed her. They haven't even collected her belongings. Every correspondence I have from them says that they've asked me not to have any contact with her. I feel very strongly that she was running away to see me, so I don't think that she would continue to run away if they allowed her to see me.
We were told we were going to be advocates. We were also told when there was an allegation, we were supposed to just back off, hands off, couldn't be helpful. Well, that's exactly when they needed the most help. And it wasn't that we wanted to go out and brief them on what to say. It's just to be there, to hold their hands, to give them encouragement. And our instructions were, back away. Leave them alone. leave them on their own until the investigation is complete, which could be a day, a week, a month, 3 months. And I'm going, no, that does not fulfill their needs, nor does it fulfill the charter that I interviewed for. It says we're going to help them. Well, that's when they're in greatest need of help. So I didn't always back off when I was told to back off.
It was shortly after that that they moved her back down to Riverside and put her in a mental hospital in Riverside, and then they moved her again to the state hospital. And that assures them that she won't run away again. They warehouse children there, pretty much, but she's locked down and she's not going anywhere. Even when she goes to a park, my understanding is it's right there on the property. I don't know how helpful it is for her. She tells me that she's not staying in school, so I think she's not getting the education she should be getting. She isn't learning any kind of life skills at this point in time that would help her to get out when she gets out. I think they're just doing a behavior management with drugs and with consistency, conformity, the things that go on in there, and she goes from a level 1 or 2 or 3, and if she messes up, she's back down to a level 2. I don't think she's been a level 3 yet. She's not going anywhere.
The social workers are afraid of their job, the foster parents are afraid of their job. How good a job can we do for these kids? In my estimation, there was a department out of control. They did what they wanted to do, when they wanted to do it, with little or no forethought of who they were hurting. It was just, oh, it's just a foster parent, oh, it's just a foster kid. No, what I wanted to happen to start with was, let's look at the way things are handled. Let's make sure there are ways, if something is incorrect, to correct it. Not just, this one item was just, like I say, a vehicle. And the system wanted me to keep going back and pounding on this one thing. And I said, this is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a change, an attitudinal change in a department, in the social workers, in the foster parents, in everything, because this is not serving the children. Because I'll tell you what, if you abuse one foster parent, you abuse foster children. Because who is it that takes care of those kids anyway? Me as a social worker? No. My supervisor? No. Manager, director, state, governor? No. They see them or hear about them maybe once in a blue moon. These foster parents do it every day, every night, 7 days a week, 24/7, the whole time. So if we abuse them, we abuse the kids.
I am a nurse since 1967. I have a master's and a bachelor's degree in psychology. I am a licensed foster home in Riverside County for 18 years, and I am currently working on my PhD in psychology. One of the reasons is the truth needs to get out from the people who are the foster parents who are working with these children, and they need to feel safe that they can talk to someone so people can help the foster parents and the children. The other reason is if you say anything negatively about the Department of Social Services, California and County.
Probably the ultimate punishment for them is if somebody responds and actually removes children from their home. And they fear that they could not, it's not only just their own children, the foster children who might be removed, but that the social worker might well remove their own children.
You are punished for it in some way or another. And usually, I myself am not worried about me, but what will happen is they will go after my children. And what I mean by going after my children is that I have these children, this is their home, they're bonding, they know this is home, I'm mom, they will come in and take the children. And their famous term is, in the best interest of the children.
You could lose everything. You could lose your family as a result of that. I have said to them, I don't know why you do this. I wouldn't do it. I honestly wouldn't do it. I admire them. I mean, thank God for them. If they weren't there, I don't know where our kids would be. But they give up a tremendous amount, and yet I think sometimes the department and social workers look down on them as somehow they're definitely not seen as part of the team. They're looked down upon. They are mistreated. They are the first to go. If something happens, they're expendable. And yet they're volunteers, and we couldn't do this without them.
Well, my name is Nancy Kroll, and I've been a teacher for 40 years. Taught in Southern California, and in 1987 my husband and I moved to Bishop area. And I've taught up there since 1988 until 2001 when I was forced out of my job due to false allegations by CPS. We had a foster child that there were false allegations made, and she was taken from us even though we were planning to adopt her. We were 1 week away from the adoption, the final adoption meeting with the state workers. When I first met these children, they had moved from Oregon, and it was in February of 1993. And I had the little boy in my class first, and very hard to handle. A lot of signs were there, but at the time I wasn't real sure, so I just kind of watched. The little girl was in kindergarten in our school, and I had several reports from neighbors that the children were being abused, but you don't like to do things or take action until you know something is true. We had indications and reports that she'd been burned by cigarettes, and I was able to actually find the burns on her, so I did report those to CPS, and they did nothing. The Mono County CPS did nothing to help. As time went on, the little boy graduated into the next grade, and the little girl came into our life, into the first grade with me, and she was in my first grade class. Rarely came to school. The children hardly if ever came to school, and when they did, they'd come in time to eat lunch because that seemed to be the only meal of the day that they would get, the free meals. She had really bad teeth, and I worked with the father and tried to get him to take her to the dentist. I made appointments. He wouldn't follow up on it. Finally, this went on for the whole first grade year, and the second grade year, in October, she came to school one day with a cigarette burn, and I asked her about it, and she said, "Oh, I just bumped into so-and-so's cigarette." But you could see where there was an actual burn mark from the cigarette on her nose. And a few days after that, she came to school, and her face was so badly swollen from her abscessed teeth that she couldn't even open her eyes. And at that time, they were living in the state of Nevada, so I called a friend of mine that was a sheriff over there and told him that if he didn't do something with these children to protect them, that they were going to end up dead. The children were taken out of the home 2 weeks later, and they were never returned to the family. In early 1995, around May, we were contacted by the Nevada Social Services and asked if we would take these children into our home because they had asked to come and live with us. And we got her on August 14th, 1995. We drove to where she was in Nevada. We picked her up. We picked up her few belongings and brought them home. When she first arrived at our home, she was a very scared little child. Cried at every little thing that happened. Just the fact the dog coming, we had several dogs because we rescued dogs from the pound and from people who abused them. So we had several dogs, and to greet her, of course, they ran up and barked and licked her hand. She was just petrified. So it wasn't long before she was a consoler of the animals and became, one of their friends, so to speak. But in the very beginning, it was difficult. She wet the bed. She had terrible, terrible nightmares. We would sit up with her night after night after night, consoling her and telling her that she was safe, that things weren't going to happen to her anymore, and that she was in a safe place. For the next 5 years, the nightmares diminished, but she still had them. And one of us, either my husband or I, would sit with her in the evening. It's usually happened around 2 or 3 in the morning that she would wake up just frightened to death. Being a teacher for 40 years, my belief has always been that if you can give a child a good self-image, they can conquer just about anything. And so that was our goal. My husband and I discussed it, and we decided that even though we weren't financially wealthy, that we would do everything we could to make her life a normal life as much as possible for her. And no matter what it took. So we waited a year and let her get used to the home, let her get used to the school and the friends and everything. And at the end of the first year, she joined 4-H. Her first year in 4-H, she won the gold medal for her book, not only locally but countywide. She won several awards at the fair in the 4-H division. Everything that we did, we worked with her so that she would try to have a winning attitude, a winner's desire, so that she would feel good. She was just totally different than the child that we brought into our home, this scared child. She was outgoing. She was consoling younger girls that were scared for their first competition. She was just a totally different child. We had her for 5 years, and then our world fell apart. The allegations that they brought, they accused us of not feeding her. They accused us of beating her. They accused us of just, I mean, I've got 23 allegations against me, none of which are true. Like, I wrongfully kept her home from a school field trip. The reason was she didn't give us a permission slip. I took her bicycle helmet and made her walk the bicycle home. Well, she'd been told 100 times not to leave it on her bicycle out by the road where it could get stolen. I'd asked her to please put it in my car or put it in my classroom. And I told her the next time it happened, I was going to take the helmet and she would have to walk the bicycle home, and that's what happened. CPS made that abuse. They had wrong dates, wrong everything in their allegations.
Because some social workers are in a hurry, and they look at the allegation, they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 allegations. Oh, they don't look and draw up and find out all the ramifications, because that takes a lot of time.
We saw her 1 month after she was taken from us, because we drove to the city where she was at. And I was getting my truck fixed. I was getting the oil changed. And all of a sudden I heard, "Mom, Mom." Well, we weren't from that town, so I didn't expect anything. And the next thing I knew, there was this child around my waist hugging me, saying, "Mom, Mom, did you come to get me? You know, take me home." And I told her we'd come to try and get her. But the social workers weren't cooperating with us, and not to count on anything. So the Nevada state law says that foster children have a right to contact their foster parents if they want to. We hadn't heard from her from January of 2001 until December 27th. And 27th of December she called us. And her first question to us was, "Do you still love me?" And we assured her we did. And she says, "Well, Mom, you know what they told me? They told me that you didn't love me anymore, and that you turned in your foster license, so you didn't have to have me anymore." And we told her that was a lie. And the last time she talked to us, she says, "Mom, when I'm 18, I'm coming home." And her brothers told us the same thing. And we just recently found out that she told an older sister that she had that's been in contact with her that she was told if she continued to contact us without their permission, they were going to put her in juvenile hall. And we haven't heard from her since.
Every time we close a home or we put them on hold and take the kids out, we've just done child abuse. It's sanctioned by the wheels that be, because they can do their little dance and say, well, it's because. And most of that stuff is, in my best estimation, garbage.
But one of our major problems has been, honestly, that the people who know all of this stuff about children have been very inefficient at effectively communicating these things to policymakers and politicians. We've just done a terrible job at that. We want to give them facts. We want to give them things, factoids, without concepts. And you know, people are drowning in factoids. People need to learn the concepts so that they can organize the factoids. Factoids about children and child development and all of this other stuff, it's a little bit like having this, a bunch of Christmas tree ornaments strewn across the floor. Each one is kind of interesting and pretty, but they're really not beautiful until you have the organizing tree that helps you put them in the right place and create a more cohesive picture. And that's the problem right now. Somebody will come in front of a policymaker and say, all right, here's a factoid. And it's, you know, they don't really know what to do with it. We need to teach them concepts and principles so they can help make sense out of all these things that they hear.
It's something that has to be done, and the lawmakers have to open their eyes. They're not opening their eyes. They're listening to what CPS tells them, and CPS is lying to them. There's just too many people's lives that are being ruined. The children, our daughter will never be the same. She will never be the same. I think I can rebuild my life. I don't know that she can.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Come in, huh? No shot of this one. Go all the way to Sacramento. And or further if we have to.
Stop stealing the kids. 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 Stop stealing the kids.
I'm here today to bring light to what's happened to our grandson. He was legally kidnapped, we feel, by Child Protective Services in San Diego County, in our case, and we don't know where he is. He's been missing now for 2 years. We've had a long court battle, and the tragedy of it here in our particular case is that we have the younger brother, CPS. They were good enough to give the younger brother to us. We have had the younger one for 4 years since he's been since an infant, but yet they took away the older brother. They broke up siblings. Very un-American and an unconscionable sin, what they have done to our family. It has affected us terribly, and especially my wife is, well, the grandmother. And you have any other questions about Child Protective Services, they should be investigated and exposed for legalized kidnapping. They are a disgrace to America and to civilized nations in particular.
Keisha Alonso, and I'm Victoria's grandmother. I raised her pretty much from birth for 3 years, me and my husband, and CPS came in and took her out and said we couldn't adopt her. And we're here to make the people aware of what's going on. I was thinking today what would be the best thing to say. And, you know, we're all afraid of Osama bin Laden coming over here, terrorism, and this is like terrorism in our own backyard. We need to be afraid of our government, not Osama bin Laden. Our government's protecting us from Osama bin Laden, but they're not protecting us from Child Protective Services. And we don't know what else to do but come out and make it public, make people aware of what's going on, that they're stealing our kids. And we want them back.
No justice, no peace.
Well, I have believed for many years that what happens in the juvenile dependency court, the child protection court, needs to be known to the public. And what we do here is so important. We protect children, we make sure they're safe, but we also try to find them permanent homes, whether that's with their family or in an adoptive home or some other permanent placement. And what we do goes to the very fabric of our society. if we're going to have a successful society, a successful social order, we need to have strong families. And the idea that children are removed and then from their homes and then drift in foster care is unacceptable. And the legislature's told us that. The child development experts have told us that. And yet this court, which makes these critical decisions, is a protected, private, confidential court, and the public knows very little bit about it. And so I decided to do something about that. And I invited two San Jose Mercury News reporters to come and spend some time in my court. And there was lots of talk about confidentiality when they arrived, but they ended up staying for 2 years and wrote a book explaining what the dependency court's all about. The book has had remarkable national success and is used by court systems all over the country as a model for, first of all, explaining to the public what goes on in the court, and then secondly, as a encouragement for courts to open up more so that the outside world, the community, can see what's going on inside. Well, I've carried this further. I have people sitting in my court every day. Not only trainee social workers and trainee child advocates, CASAs, but also interested citizens. I invite them to my court because I think it's important that our community knows what goes on in this court. There's another issue. If we're not doing a good job, we shouldn't hide that. And I ask most of the people who come in, tell me what you think about what we're doing. I believe that we, as a system, we are a very expensive system. We have paid attorneys for all parties. The county pays those bills. We have social workers who are paid by the government. I'm paid by the government. With this expensive operation that we have here, we need to be held accountable for what we do, for the results that we produce, for the way we behave. And that accountability can only come, in my view, from public knowledge about what goes on. And so for those reasons, and because of the success I've had in opening the courtroom up, I have continued that policy.
Nobody takes full responsibility for the full child, and nobody takes the time to truly make the kinds of relationships and commitments to these kids that will lead to enduring change. And it's not that the people in these systems wouldn't do that or couldn't do that. It's just that there are problems with the way the system is put together. These systems are filled with caring people in general who are bright, but who are shackled by a whole host of impediments. And some of them are regulatory, some of them are historical biases about the way a discipline or a profession practices their work, and some of them are just plain logistic. That we are both physically separate in these systems, we are structurally separate, and it leads to this tremendous, essentially a ping pong effect. A kid going through the system is like a child in one of these ping pong things. You know, they get bounced from here to there to there to there, all over the place. And nobody has them long enough to really appreciate who they are and what they need.
We've been pretty successful in persuading those that we work with that this is the right way to approach child protection cases. About 10 years ago, I invited 4 New Zealanders to come over here and to talk about something called family group conferencing, also called family group decision making. And that's what they practice in New Zealand. They not only practice it, it's a part of their law. The state may not make a decision about a child until the extended family has an opportunity to convene, to discuss, and make its suggestion. And the result of that system in New Zealand, it's based in part on the Maori people who have a more extended family viewpoint of where children belong in our community. As a result, their foster care system has been reduced dramatically. You don't need foster care if the extended family can come to the table. Well, we're a little more spread out here in and a little more mobile than they are in New Zealand. So we have some special challenges. But we have an institute here in Santa Clara County where we train people how to use this system, and we use it in our child protection cases, and I think we have great success with it.
The most important thing you can do with these kids is to recognize that the major vehicle for positive change is the relationship. And whether that relationship is brief or long, it has to have the following characteristics. It has to be sincere. It has to be honest. It has to be compassionate, and it has to be present. In other words, when you are with the child, be with the child. Don't be worrying about the fact that you've got 10 minutes with this child and you've got 8 kids in the waiting room. Give that child those 10 minutes. Give it to them. Be with them. You know, in 10 minutes you can stop, but those 10 minutes belong to the child, and really be present. That makes a huge difference. When you are honest with the child, when you are truly invested, they know that. You need to help them walk away from that interaction with hope. You're not going to be able to change everything. It is impossible. But you need to give them hope that people can be caring, people can be present, people can be compassionate, adults can be good listeners. And if these kids can walk away from that interaction with that, they have the hope to keep working and keep trying and keep striving to be better and keep trying to find those good things that are out there. And ultimately they'll find them, because the world really does have lots of good people and there's lots of good opportunities. And even kids who have horrible backgrounds and horrible things are going to grow up and run into people who are going to be compassionate and caring and will listen to them and will give them a chance. But if the child has given up, and when they meet that person, they don't try, they don't engage, they reject the initial offers of that person to help, they're not going to benefit from them the way they could. So the most important thing we can give these kids is hope.